Commissioners, staff, petitioners, and citizens to the May 9th Mishawaka Plan Commission meeting. Introduction of staff. To my right, we have Krista Hill, our senior planner, interim secretary, shadowed by Donna Burkhart. We have Ken Prince in the front row, our executive director. To my right, Shad Annis, associate planner. Derek Spear, our city planners. To my left, David Bent, our legal counsel, is up here in the front row to my left. Krista, would you please call the roll?
Chris Jamrose. Here. Murray Wynn.
Here.
Woody Emmons.
Here.
Sam Cressy.
Here.
Chris Doherty.
Here?
Nick Triola. Dale Freeman.
Here.
Kathleen Whitegadich. Here. Michael Portlees.
Here.
Thank you, Krista. The rules of procedure are up on the board and to my right and left. First, we will hear a presentation by the petitioner. For each item, we will ask those participating in the room to speak first, followed by those participating online. We could have just a little patience if there's somebody online. It may take a little extra time. Then we'll hear those who wish to speak in favor of the request, then those who wish to speak against the request. If you're not sure whether you're speaking for or against and you have general questions, I suggest you do it during the against the request. We'll accumulate all the questions and we'll have a right of rebuttal by the petitioner to answer those questions. We'll close the public hearing. We'll have a commission discussion and then a commission vote. I ask that all the speaking is done at the podium, name and address. It can be your home or business address. If you could say that clearly so Krista could take that down, that would be helpful. Previous month's minutes, April, were distributed to all the commissioners. Were there any corrections or additions to those? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the April month's minutes, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? And that passes our minutes. Is there any conflict of interest on any agenda items tonight with the commissioners? Hearing none, that brings us to the first item, which I have a note that will be tabled, is asking to table it till June 13th. That's petition 23-06. All those in favor of tabling this, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? And petition 23-06 is tabled till June 13th. Brings us to the next item on the agenda, petition number 23-09, a petition by Cass Road LLC requesting to annex and rezone property at 15793 East University Drive to C1 General Commercial District. Is there somebody here or online to present this petition?
Yes, I'm Dave Holzem with Nifong Realty, and Larry Nifong with Nifong Realty is also online.
Thank you. Tell us about your petition.
Well, we are looking at the property on University Drive for the development of approximately 50,000 square feet of retail. It's a two-tenant building, so we were able to use the C1 zoning, or request the C1 zoning class instead of C2 to help with side setbacks a little bit. Pretty standard retail development. Will look very similar to, you know, a lot of the nice looking properties that are in the neighborhood. So it's, you know, brick, glass, EIFS, so on and so forth. So it'd be a very nice looking building.
Thank you. Is there questions for Mr. Holzem from the commissioner? Woody?
Sir, have you had meetings with the people out there in the single-family residence area?
We have not.
Is there a reason why you haven't?
Well, my understanding is that the notice was being sent out to all the neighbors, you know, that we were requesting this annexation. So my assumption was that if there were any objections, we would, you know, go through them tonight.
Well, I didn't hear what you all said. You cut out in that. What was your reason for not meeting with them? Was there no interest in the people out there?
Well, we certainly have interest in being a good neighbor, and we've done shopping center developments all over, you know, the Midwest, and, you know, I think any one of our developments will would prove that we're a good neighbor and we take care of our properties and, we don't upset anybody. My understanding is that the invite was sent out, or the public notice was sent out regarding this meeting, so that if anybody had an objection to it or was concerned about what we were doing, they could either contact us or attend this meeting. There was no slight intended whatsoever.
So there was no letters out to anybody within 300 feet of your proposed development?
Mr. President, if I may clarify?
Pardon?
If I may clarify, Mr. President?
Sure. Yes.
So I believe the only single family out there are located on this property, or perhaps there may be a residual one left on the adjacent property that's owned by the veterinarian. But there really are no single family residents, as would be typical, like a subdivision or anything, Woody, as part of this request. So I really think when you look at the aerial of the property, you can see the adjacent property, that home is actually owned by the veterinarian, and they were provided notice. And I think his long-term plan, the veterinarian, is to develop that property commercial over a period of time. So this is not a typical, where you have a single-family residence that is intended to stay with single-family residence. So I think that's part of the reason they would not have held, I would not have, normally I would recommend if they have a large residential presence that they would have a neighborhood meeting. I did not recommend that in this case because, again, the long-term outlook for this area is that commercial.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other questions for Mr. Holsom on the petition?
Just one question. Looking at the map, I know we had an issue with the drive and shine further down with traffic in and out. This is going to add more traffic, and there's no way to really see control it, stoplight-wise. Are there any thoughts looking forward to that?
Are you if you're asking me, the recommendations that were made by city engineering were that we would line the driveway up with the Costco property directly across the street from University Drive, so that there would not be any, stagger or zippering down the road, so that if there is I think an issue in the future, because those driveways would be lined up, it would be able, you would in the future be able to create a controlled intersection.
Are you aligning with their stoplight or with just their entrance that goes into the gas facility?
Yeah, with the entrance so it'd be on the eastern end of the property. As you can see on if you look at our site plan that's included.
Okay.
So that would be the single, and then what engineering asked was that if you look at there's parking alongside of University Drive, and then there's a open aisle there that runs east-west along those parking stalls. And engineering asked that we would reserve rights for cross-access easement going to the west. So that would permit somewhat of a, not necessarily a access road, but at least a road that could control traffic, so it's only coming out at one or 2 points in that area. And we're okay with whatever would go on with the veterinary property or whatever with that cross-access easement. We do that on multiple shopping centers, and ultimately we think it benefits us to have that extra visibility anyway.
Mr. President, if I may add clarification.
Sure.
So the access to the signal, this is at the Target signal, not the Costco signal, because the Costco signal is located across from Granger Community Church. So the goal, the city has hired Dan Charner to look at different alternatives relative to how we can provide all the properties that are to the west of the ditch that is between this property and Granger Community Church, access to the signal located across from Target. So the applicant just referenced the cross-access easement, which we believe would provide that connection, but we have not figured out how, because of the location of the vet building, of how that drive might be situated to serve all properties, which is why we've hired Dan Charner. But the goal, if we can at all do it, and this requires multiple property owners to work together, is to get everybody access to that signal across from Target. Either way, the application before you tonight is a annexation and rezoning, And so it would go through another process regarding a site plan approval where things like the access and stormwater will be reviewed much more specifically. So the intent in staff and other department comments in the request was really to provide the applicant direction before they would move on to the next phase in the process. So you're really not considering the access tonight, you're considering the uses that are associated with the C1 zoning classification. But in terms of answering the question, which is a very valid one, and how we're going to deal with the traffic, is we're trying to work on it. If we're not able to get all the property owners to work together and to get this done, we can't deny access to this property. And my understanding from engineering is the access would actually be only one access point, and it would be located between the two access drives that are located to the south, which I believe are both the Target Center development access drives. One is much more of a delivery entrance on the backside. And Chris, you can clarify that if I have that wrong.
You said it beautifully.
Great.
No, I appreciate the comment about the access. My biggest concern was when Drive and Shine was here, we were told the veterinary office denied access. They just flat said, no, you can't come through to the light.
And ultimately, that may be true, but the vet has indicated a willingness to work and to try to provide a solution. But again, if we can't provide a solution, then Drive and Shine, as we've discussed with them, is responsible for a whole lot of improvements on University Drive and would be limited to right in, right out. And we think it's in everybody's benefit to work together, because ultimately the vet owns the property between this proposed development and the Drive and Shine property. So there's additional room for development on the vet property, and we believe access to the signal for everybody would make that property more valuable as well.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Yep. Great points. Thank you for all that clarification. I really appreciate it. Any other questions for Mr. Holsom? Thank you for the presentation. Is there anybody online or in the chamber wishing to speak in favor of petition 23-09? Is there anybody in the room or online wishing to speak against petition 23-09? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and open it up for any questions. And if there's no questions or discussions, I will take a motion.
I move that we approve petition 23-09.
Murray,
I will second.
Chief, and would you please call for the vote?
Chris Jamrose,
Yes?
Murray Wynn,
Yes.
Woody Emmons,
Yeah,
Sam Cressy,
Yes.
Chris Torti,
Yes?
Dale Freeman,
Yes.
Kathleen Whitegadich,
Yes.
Michael Porterlies.
Yes.
And petition 23-09 will move to the council with a favorable rating. It brings us to the next item on the agenda, petition 23-10, a petition by Michael Rivas requesting to rezone property at 2027 East LaSalle from I-2 Heavy Industrial District to R1 Single Family Residential District.
Yes, it was part of, from what I understand, to do the other, oh, sorry.
Can I get your name and address so she
Oh,
can
I'm sorry. Michael Reeves,
take that?
2027 East LaSalle Avenue, Mishawaka, Indiana, 46545.
Now tell us about what you want to do.
Because from what I understand, it's commercial property as of now,
Yes, it is.
and we're getting it changed to residential, because one of the things that I understood was that if the house burnt down, you couldn't build it back either. And and the lady over here was very nice to explain and show me that stuff, that I wondered why the mortgage companies and all that never caught it when the house was bought and had it changed to residential, because it's all residential. That's why we're looking to move to get it changed over.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Reeves? Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yeah,
Great, Reeves, okay. I think I did it wrong the first
yeah,
time.
that's no problem.
Okay, if there's no questions, thank you for the presentation.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Is there anybody online or in the room wishing to speak in favor of petition 23-10? Is there anybody online or in the room wishing to speak against petition 23-10? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, and I will take a motion on petition 23-10.
Make a motion for approval of 23-10?
second.
Mike, Woody. Krista, would you please call for the vote?
Chris Jamrose?
Yes.
Murray Wynn?
Yes.
Woody Evans?
Yes.
Sam Cressy?
Yes.
Chris Torty?
Yes?
Dale Freeman?
Yes.
Kathleen Whitegadich?
Yes.
Michael Porterly?
Yes.
And petition 23-10 will move to the council with a favorable rating. That brings us to plat number 23-01, a request submitted by Deer Run Fur LLC seeking approval of the two-lot Deer Run subdivision, Section 4.
My name's Terry Lang from the Whiteman office. Our new address is 1402 Mishawaka Avenue in South Bend. I'm here representing the petition before you. A couple years ago, I was here when the petition was brought before you for the Bliss Assisted Living Facility, which is located immediately to the east of this property. When they purchased that property, they had a option on additional property at the time when they purchased it, and the property that's before you is that additional property that they had the option on. They weren't purchasing the entire lot. It was a specific acreage that they were, had the option on. The plat before you is the specific acreage, so we've configured it in a fashion that pretty well splits the property in half in that fashion that you see before you. We saw the engineering comments that there'll have to be an additional sewer tap, and obviously we'll, when they get to the development stage of it, at this point, there are no plans other than the fact they had to exercise that option in that specific time frame. So we've added the appropriate easement that the Drainage Board wanted to see on the plat for the Wormer Ditch along the northerly and westerly along the railroad portion of that. So those have been added to satisfy the Drainage Board on that part of it. But other than that, we're just following through with that option that they had for the additional property when they purchased the first part. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions? Nope, thank you for the presentation. Is there anybody in the room or online wishing to speak in favor of plat 23-01? Is there anyone in the room or online wishing to speak in opposition to plat 23-01? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, and I will ask for a motion on plat 23-01.
I motion to approve
I will
23-01.
Second.
Oh, Kathy, great. Dale?
Yes.
Yep. Please call for the vote.
Chris Jamrose?
Yes.
Murray Wynn?
Yes.
Woody Evans?
Yes.
Sam Cressy?
Yes.
Chris Torty?
Yes.
Dale Freeman?
Yes.
Kathleen Whitegadich?
Yes.
Michael Porterly?
Yes.
And plat 23-01 passes unanimously. Next item is design review, 23-03, a request submitted by City of Mishawaka requesting a waiver from the Mishawaka City Design Review Ordinance, Section 105-76, architectural materials for northwest corner of West Front Street and North Hill Street, Mishawaka, Indiana. Is there somebody here to present this? Online? Online? I heard a rumor that somebody's online to speak for this design review, 23-03. If you can hear me and you're online, you may want to check your mute status. Online, this is for design review, 23-03. Can we somehow check? Is there?
It looks like I'm the only one online, but I'm not speaking to this. I'm just participating in the meeting.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for participating.
You're welcome.
IT, is there anyone else on? Okay, okay.
We heard that there is somebody online and they're muted. Could we have you check your mute status?
It should be someone from Flaherty and Collins.
Do they have a way, IT, is there a way to message this person?
He says they can't unmute them.
Okay, there we go. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, all right, welcome to the meeting.
Oh, goodness. Thank you. Trying to get online with the link didn't work, so I had to dial in via my phone. So sorry for the slowdown there.
No problem. Name and
my name
address,
is
please. Name and address.
Yes. My name is Drew Calvert, a representative from Meticulous Architects, the designers for this, working with Flaherty and Collins. Our address is 932 East Washington Street, Indianapolis, Indiana.
Donna, did you get that name okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, tell us about your design review, please.
Yes. So when we got our design review back from the city, this is for a 227-unit apartment complex, multifamily housing near the mill area, or we have a project mill phase 1 that was built and approved using similar materials. We're using a mix of fiber cement, brick, stone, aluminum, and concrete. And after the city reviewed the design, they had looked and noticed that in the C3 districts, there are specific materials that are listed as approved and some that are not. They did a similar review back for phase 1 to approve the fiber cement, concrete, and a few other materials like aluminum facing on a few facades to help keep the area looking a little bit more diverse. And because the phase 1 and phase 2 are of similar properties and wanting to look similar so they can be recognized together, we're going down the same route. And I believe elevations of this project are submitted in the attached, kind of showing what the design is going to look like. So we were looking to get requests for the design approval for the use of the alternate materials.
Questions on this design review?
Is the blue fiber cement, is that the color that you'll be going with? Or is
Yes,
that aluminum?
not the exact, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So the blue fiber cement is a representational fiber cement paint color. We were looking to approve of paint colors with the owner as we get further into the construction process. But the mix of colors is kind of representational of what we're looking to use, so yes.
Will there be a separate approval for paint color, or is this the only approval that we'll have for design?
Is that a question for, I don't know if that was a question for me or for the design team or for the review team?
Yes, it was, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think as of right now, this was the only approval. I think this was the look that we are going for. We aren't looking to deviate or change the blue to a green or anything like that. The blue would actually be a blue color with the final design.
Is blue the only color you're going to be using on the outside?
No, so we have, for those who are able to see the elevations or not, we've got a mix for the fiber cement. We're doing a mix of white. White is the primary color, along with gray, and then we got accents of blue and kind of a burnt orange. These colors are kind of representational from phase 1 as well. So we wanted to make sure that the two designs were kind of a little bit cohesive. So we took materials and colors from the same, from the previous project to make sure they could look like they're the same. And we've got a mix of tan and gray brick, as well as a phenolic metal or a phenolic paneling, which has like a wood texture to it. That's at the main entrance to signify that portion of the building. We're also accenting the north corner, which is near the river, and the south corner, which both have retail or commercial use. We wanted to make sure that those corners stood out a little bit, so we've got a mix of brick with accents and storefront to make sure that those stood out as well.
The only reason I ask is I wasn't too thrilled with that chartreuse color that you put on the first building, and that. So I was just wondering what kind of colors you were putting on this one.
Yeah, so we don't have the exact same colors as phase 1. The main colors are basically the white and the gray are kind of the field colors, and then the blue and the orange are basically inset into the balconies. So you only see them in those, basically inside of those balcony areas, not on the main faces.
Well,
Like
I'm
you said,
I'm just concerned of how your color system is going to work or look over there, and that's all I'm asking, you know. Like I say, the first building, I wasn't too pleased with the color selection, and I was just wondering how this one was going to fare out with your colors of the blue and the tan and the white and that.
It'll probably be very similar, except it'll be that blue highlight.
Yeah, well, I was wondering if
Yeah.
there's going to be any of that chartreuse or that lemon color that's on there.
I'm just curious why you're seeking the waiver rather than going through the regular design review process.
So we went through the design review process with the city, and I believe that got approved minus the materials. They made a recommendation, the city itself made the recommendation to approve the material. That was, I think, what this was mainly for.
Well, also, I understand you're asking to use some other material that really is not in the approved list, and then you come and you ask for a waiver. And I've always asked this question, why do we have standards if we're always varying from them? To me, if we have standards, we need to live up to those standards and not have the developers come and ask to use different material than what we say you can and cannot use.
Mr. President, if I may clarify.
Yes, thank you.
So, and Woody, I know you weren't here when we adopted the design review back in 1999, but I worked on the draft of them, and it's clearly stated in the intent, is the purpose was to create high-quality development and still allow artistic license to the architects that are developing these buildings to do something creative. So although you may not like the green, yellow, chartreuse, whatever the color is on the building, that was done as an accent color, and we specifically allowed for that in the ordinance. They have to ask for the waiver because ultimately that is how the city controls that. We didn't want somebody, and I use the example of a giant pink building. If we didn't have those standards in the ordinance, somebody could come in and put up a giant pink building. But the intent was, we want that basic level of control, but we want to allow for the creativity. So we allow those high contrasting colors as accents, which they've done beautifully on phase one. We may not like it, but that's what that's what the ordinance is there for. The same with the blue color that they're looking to do on phase two. When you look at it, they have presented all the colors that they're going to do. So the entire building is not going to be blue, to your point. The colors are up on the screen, and they're limited only to those areas that are identified. So we think this building is a great complement to phase one, and my guess is the owner looked at the colors that are on phase one and said, you know what? We want to do a different color than the chartreuse that you're not caring for, and now they've changed it to a blue. But otherwise, the colors are very complementary to what the phase one building is. So essentially, what we're asking the commission to do tonight is to approve the waivers to allow phase two to be built almost identical to phase one, only blue as an accent. And then obviously the detailing is different. Architects get offended when I compare things, and they've done them differently because there's a different architect on this project than there was in phase one. But that stylistically, it's very comparable to what was done on phase one. And I don't know if I've helped or confuse things, but but it's very hard. So to write an ordinance, to your point of, do we have standards? Yes, we have standards, but we didn't want to make it so narrowed down that, like, we don't mind pink on a building, but we didn't want an entire building as pink. So what we had to do was develop standards and a waiver process. That's why we don't call it a variance. We call it a waiver. There's a specific legal test associated with a variance when you deviate from a standard. A waiver is just going through this process, so it's much different than a variance that you have to prove hardship. The waiver is just regarding approving the high quality nature of the building and the intent of the design review ordinance. So from that standpoint, I believe phase two definitively, we want all development downtown. I wish all development was matching the quality that they're representing here, because I think it is a high standard and is what we wanted downtown. Now, we can all discuss the aesthetics, but the intent of the ordinance was never to be the I got accused when the ordinance was created of being the color Nazi, of determining what the colors were on people's projects, and the intent was to give them a palette to work with. So I'm personally very sensitive that I don't want to be the one that tells them that they can't use blue. I just want to be the one that, in terms of enforcing the ordinance, if they were proposing an all-blue building, that would be in a completely different story. But here, they're using it consistent with what we wanted in the ordinance to provide that variety and aesthetic creativity associated with the ordinance. So that's the blue that they've got proposed. So I know it's not a hard line. I know it's not, we allow 10% of a color or 20% of the color. The intent was to give them that ability to have that wide variety to come to you to say, does this fall within that creativity guideline that we've created? So that's, I'll get off my soapbox now unless it's.
I understand where you come from. It just seems like when we proved the CVS store down there, drugstore and everything, we were very stringent of what they had to do, that they couldn't vary too much, that they had to have a certain type of brick, they couldn't vary from any other thing, it had to be all the red brick and everything else. And now, when we're having all this other development, we're a little bit more lax.
What building are you talking about with all red bricks?
The downtown on First Street, the
Right.
CVS building, the drugstore.
Right, so, I mean, I can go back because I was part of those discussions with CVS. And part of it was they were looking to acquire the site that the city owned. And we've told them very specifically on multiple occasions that they had to reach a higher level of standard, that we didn't want a typical CVS. And I stand by that from a development perspective. They did not want to put a different building attached, that they wanted a blank wall on Main Street. And that's where Zing is located right now. And we told them multiple times, the developer of that CVS, they said, take it or leave it. And we said, leave it. We did that multiple times before they finally came back with something that we deemed acceptable. So I think in that case, that's a requirement through the redevelopment commission and not in terms of developing a development agreement. But that was through the development agreement that we were so stringent on that, not the planning commission. Yes, the planning commission, I believe there's a waiver regarding the height of their letters that exceeded it, that I think we limited to 18 inches and they have a 24-inch letter on the CVS. But other than that, it complied with the ordinance. I think the real discussion was regarding the development agreement, not regarding the design review, which the planning commission considered.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate the expanded coverage that you had on things and actually clarified the waiver meaning for me. So I really appreciate that, Mr. Prince. Thank you for that. You had another comment?
I do, Ken. I have one more question about the colors. Is it correct that the percentage of blue is not going to be enforced based off of this waiver? And also, that you mentioned all of the colors that they're going to use are in this waiver. Are they limited to these colors then? My question being, if they decided to bring that chartreuse back later down the road, would they be able to? And would they also be able to decide that the whole building would be pink later down the road?
Right, so they would have to bring it back
Yeah,
to us.
okay, thank you.
To approve, so that change in aesthetic would require them to come back.
Okay, thank you.
Great point. Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Moving on, is there anybody else in the room or online wishing to speak in favor of Design Review 23-03? Is there anyone online or in the room wishing to speak against Design Review 23-03? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, and if there's any questions or any commissioners would like to speak?
I'm colorblind.
Oh, okay, well, yeah, you'll say yes.
I'm in.
I'll take a motion on 23-03.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Sam and Murray. Please call for the vote.
Chris Jamrose?
Yes.
Murray Wynn?
Yes.
Woody Emmons?
Yes.
Sam Cressy?
Yes.
Chris Torty?
Yes.
Dale Freeman?
Yes.
Kathy Mykadich?
Yes.
Michael Porterlies?
Yes.
And Design Review 23-03 passes unanimously. Mr. City Planner, is there any old business?
None.
Any new business?
None.
Privilege of the floor. Is there anybody that wished to speak on anything that's not on the agenda? You sure? Anybody back there? Nope? Okay, then we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Chris?
Future, if you're okay with it, I can sit up here, but I still want to. You guys just thought it was a bad dress, or?